Hey guys, Slimber here, and today we're doing a video on Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh is a conservative commentator who's worked for the Daily Wire for like fucking forever. I think even when I started doing content, he was working there. The thing is, he has always existed, but he's really gotten big with conservatives lately because, the big culture war nonsensical issue is fucking trans people. And I guess he's a giant transphobe. He's also like very authoritarian. There's plenty of clips out there of him spouting very authoritarian fascist ideals. But anyways, let's get right into this video, shall we? He's crying about Mr. Beast having a trans friend, basically, because, yeah, that's an issue, apparently.
We live in a segregated culture, and I don't mean segregated racially, though the left is certainly working on that. I mean that it's segregated generationally.
Whoa. You're not just gonna do that, like, fucking slight and just skip right over it. Like, what do you mean the left is working on segregating us racially? What the fuck are you talking about? That's, like, nonsensical as fuck. You're just gonna skip over it, too, because it is nonsense, and you can't back it up because it's, like I said, nonsense.
And I don't mean segregated racially, though the left is certainly working on that.
The younger generations have their own culture, their own language, their own art, their own music, their own universe to themselves, which exists almost entirely online. It shouldn't be like this, and it wasn't always like this, but in the internet age, this cultural bifurcation of young and old is only getting worse. And kids have their own celebrities, too. These are people who gain tens of millions of fans, even hundreds of millions of fans, young fans, and become household names for younger people. So they're household names among the children in the household, but not the adults, while remaining almost entirely anonymous to anyone over the age of, say, 30 or 25.
Literally always been the case. Like, literally, there's always been a generation, well, I guess not always, but at least within the last 100 years, as mass media has become a thing, that has been the case, where there's a generational divide on celebrities and shit like that. Do you think the GI generation knew what Rod Stewart was? Do you think the GI generation knew, like, Marvin Gaye? I'm pretty sure they didn't, but their kids did. The boomers knew what they were. The silent gen knew what they were. Well, I guess not all of the silent gen, probably, but the younger end of the silent gen. Like, that's not like a Gen Z, millennial, baby boomer, and Gen X thing. That's a thing that's been going on for at least 100, maybe 150 years now.
A prime example of this is YouTube star Mr. Beast. And the YouTuber known as Mr. Beast, real name Jimmy Donaldson, has 145 million subscribers on the platform. That's just for his primary channel. Donaldson also has several offshoot channels, each boasting millions of additional subscribers. On his main channel, Donaldson has 3 times as many subscribers as Taylor Swift, twice as many as Justin Bieber. In fact, he has more subscribers than every pop star, more than every internet personality, more than every media or entertainment company, aside from Sony's India division. That one hasn't beat, but other than that, he has the most. He is massively successful, wildly famous, and yet I hadn't heard of him until a few months ago. I spend much of my day online for my job, unfortunately. I also have a YouTube channel of my own, which feels suddenly quite obscure by comparison. But I've only just recently become vaguely familiar with Mr. Beast. And even now, I wouldn't recognize the guy if he passed me on the sidewalk. It is, to say the least, very troubling that someone can become this prominent among younger generations and have this much influence over them and yet be so obscure to the rest of us.
Is that not, like, the case with any celebrity, though? I mean, unless you're, like, their number one biggest fan, if most celebrities just casually walked by you, no security, no limos, no adoring fans, if they just casually walked by you, would you really notice? I mean, like, okay, I love hip-hop, right? But if, like, Lil Yachty just walked by me casually, I probably wouldn't, like, notice right away. What the fuck, was that Lil Yachty? Like, I've been in the same place as Eminem and not even really realized it, so, until after, so, yeah, like, you can definitely see these celebrities and not know it. If they're fucking, nonchalant about it. Especially, yeah, Mr. Beast does kind of look just like a normal guy, though, I'm not gonna lie.
If you're a parent and you've made the mistake of giving your child open access to the internet, you're placing an enormous amount of faith in these influencers who are influencing your kids. It is a faith that is almost always, or really always, misplaced. Because even the most family-friendly content, the most seemingly innocuous, as most of Mr. Beast's content appears to be, can subtly, or not so subtly, introduce concepts that will take your child down a very dark path. And in the case of Mr. Beast, that path has been opened by his sidekick and co-star on his videos named Chris Tyson. Tyson's a frequent collaborator with Mr. Beast and an internet celebrity in his own right with nearly 14 million subscribers across TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. And he appears in many of Mr. Beast's videos. It's very familiar to fans of the channel. And those fans, most of them kids again, have been watching over the last few months as Tyson has transformed himself from a married man with a child to something that is supposed to look like some sort of approximation of a woman. Fans had noticed for several weeks as Tyson underwent a sort of bizarre physical change, not only growing his hair out, but beginning to appear increasingly frail and sickly and started wearing women's clothes and all the rest of it. Finally, last week, Tyson came out as trans and confirmed that he's been on hormone replacement therapy for the past 2 months. Explaining his decision, Tyson tweeted, quote, "Informed consent HRT saved my and many others' lives. The hurdles GNC, gender nonconforming people, have to jump through to get life-saving gender-affirming healthcare in a first world country is wild to me. Just let people make informed decisions about their own bodies." In response to the concerns some people have raised about the effect his transition, quote unquote, might have on his young son, Tucker, Tyson said, quote, "I know I'm going to be a great parent, and so is every other person who puts the love of their child before everything. I made this decision because I wanted to show up as my best and happiest self for him. In a way, this was for Tucker." Now, we'll return in a moment to the grotesque and laughable claim that he's destroying his body and denying his own manhood for the sake of his son. For the sake of his son, he says he's doing it.
I mean, at the end of the day, the son thing is kind of out of the blue. I mean, even if you listen to what he said, it just reverts back to him being happy. But, like, what? How does this harm the son in any way, though? He didn't make the son get a sex change. I'm assuming he's not going home and being like, you know, you really should get a sex change, you know? As long as he's being a loving parent, as he said before, there should be no problem with that. As long as he's not like, see, this is my vagina, my penis, I tucked in, you know? Like, there's no problem with him being trans. There shouldn't be.
But first, we have Mr. Beast's own reaction to all of this. Yesterday, he sent out a tweet blasting those who've raised concerns about having a transitioning, quote-unquote, man appear constantly in videos meant for kids. He called it absurd and said that, called the concerns absurd, that is, and said that all this transphobia is starting to piss me off. Now, admittedly, Mr. Beast has been put in an extremely difficult situation because he built a multi-million-dollar empire with innocuous, family-friendly content targeted at kids, and now his friend and collaborator and sidekick has decided to turn these videos into a sort of visual journal of his gender transition.
So, I've actually never watched Mr. Beast until now, and I went and checked out his channel. The girl, like, appears a couple times, but there's no such thing as, like, a journal of her journey, you know? Like, that's not happening. That has nothing to do with any of that in the video. Literally, there's no mention of it in the video. So, like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude?
So, Mr. Beast has a choice. He can either kick Tyson off of the team and then be excoriated as a transphobe, or he can come out fully in favor of transgenderism and he can stay, therefore, in the graces of the good graces of the media and LGBT activists, even if it means alienating a huge portion of his fan base, and especially the parents of his fan base. Well, unsurprisingly, he chose the latter. And now that he's gone down this road, there's really no coming back. You can expect much more pro-trans content from Mr. Beast going forward, which means that if you're a parent and you allow your child to watch Mr. Beast videos, now is a very good time to stop allowing.
Why the parents, though? I mean, it's only not child-friendly if you make it not child-friendly. If you just simply say, yeah, he's a girl or she's a girl, boom, problem solved. But if you sit there and go, oh, well, he got his dick cut off, or not cut off, sorry, he got his dick taken and pushed right into him. That's where it gets non-child friendly. If it's like trans porn, that's where it would not be child friendly. Like, if there's nothing sexual about it, which there really isn't, unless, like, you're making it sexual, it's still child friendly. And honestly, the people who make it sexual, I honest to God think they just want to fuck trans people, because that's like the only way, at least in my head, I can think of them making it sexual.
We could probably assume that Mr. Beast would prefer not to have to deal with this, but Tyson has forced him to make a choice, and he chose.
Oh no! Tyson wanted to be himself and comfortable in his own body! That fucking bastard! How dare he! Like, bro, like, what is that mindset of that? He forced him to do that. Like, what the fuck?
And he chose wrong. This is really the common thread. Tyson is forcing this onto people who are close to him, forcing it in more ways than one. A few months ago, Tyson posted a photo of his young son in high heels with the caption, quote, "Tucker chose to slay this morning." It's only a matter of time, we can assume, before we start hearing about Tucker's own, quote-unquote, gender transition journey, a journey which Tyson will claim that Tucker chose for himself, but we can clearly see who is making the choices here.
Well, wait. How young is the son, though? Because, like, if he's, like, really, really young, like, younger than, like, 10, he's probably just emulating what he sees from either his dad or his mom. Probably the dad, honestly, but, like, that doesn't mean he's gonna be transgendered. He's gonna grow up and have his own thoughts. Like, that's what most kids end up doing. That's why you conservatives hate these kids, because they grow up and realize you're fucking retarded. Like, dude, a lot of little kids will just emulate what they see. Because, if we're being honest, the concept of genderized clothing is kind of retarded. It's all just a bunch of thread needled together. There's nothing about a dress that makes it specifically for women, at least on a natural scale. I mean, like, Mark Dice wore a dress. He dressed up like a woman entirely, and I'm pretty sure Steven Crowder did too, and they're not trans. Or actually, you know what? I take that back. They might be.
As for his wife, Katie, we can surmise how she feels about all this based on the fact that she is divorcing her husband. Tyson announced just a couple of weeks before coming out as trans or non-binary or whatever that he and his wife had separated and were working on, quote-unquote, finalizing things. So, if you're keeping score at home, Chris Tyson has destroyed his marriage, abandoned his child to a broken home, created huge problems for his friend and business partner, potentially costing him millions of subscribers and therefore millions of dollars. And he has done all of this just so that he can live out his fantasies in public.
I mean, clearly it was worth it. Clearly it was worth it. I mean, in the divorce thing, I mean, I'm sure if he was planning on getting that and she was not okay with it, they probably have been talking about the divorce for a while. Or clearly things weren't going well for a while if he wanted to be a woman and she was not okay with that. So the kid's probably better off than having two parents who have clear opposite goals.
He had a beautiful wife, a child, a family, an incredible job that most people would kill for, which had made him wealthy and famous. And he pulled the pin and chucked a hand grenade into the middle of that happy and serene picture. And for what?
Well, first of all, he still has the job, and Mr. Beast is going to be just fine, just like Bud Light's doing just fine. The thing is, what if he's not happy, though? Like, what if he wasn't happy with that? What if he wasn't happy in that scenario? Because that's what it sounds like. He wasn't happy with all that. You're literally projecting how you'd feel in that scenario onto how he would feel. You are not the same people. You have different feelings, different goals in life. You're not the same people. He might not have been happy like that. And if you really want to project and you think you want that happy life, bro, go hit his wife up. Go get yourself some sloppy seconds, my G.
Also that he can be his, quote, happiest self, he claims. And he achieves his happiest self by rejecting his actual self.
Well, he don't have a dick anymore, so clearly that's not his actual self anymore. Yeah.
and all the responsibilities that his actual self is duty-bound to fulfill. Now, Tyson is, of course, just the latest in a long line of grown married men who decide to come out as trans or non-binary. This was Rachel Levine's story. This is really a story of some of the most prominent trans activists in the country. I think grown men who transition after they've already had kids and are married, this is a demographic that is vastly overrepresented among trans activists.
I mean, the guy's 26. He's still pretty young. It's a pretty good example of why you shouldn't get married young. Because your goals will change in life, like a lot, especially when you're in your 20s.
Now, we know that, a great many of the people who identify as quote-unquote trans, you're talking a lot of this. This is because of rapid onset gender dysphoria and the social contagion factor. There's many adolescent girls who get caught up in this. But when it comes to the activists, it seems that a hugely disproportionate number of them are men, and especially men who, quote-unquote, transitioned when they were already adults. So Tyson is then a valuable example because he reveals an important truth about the trans phenomenon. Despite what we are so often told, the decision to transition is not personal and private. Okay? It's not some sort of harmless personal decision. It's not like you're choosing an ice cream flavor at Baskin-Robbins. Okay, that's a decision where you can rightly say to anybody who has an opinion about it, hey, this doesn't affect you, okay? What do you care? That's not this. You're doing something that will have a dramatic, life-altering, devastating effect on those who are closest to you.
You still yet to say why you are and what the effects are, because at the end of the day, I looked it up, this kid's 2. Or no, he's 3. That doesn't mean he's trans, that he's throwing some high heels on. I've seen other 3-year-olds throw dresses and high heels on as far back as like 20 years ago. And none of them turned out trans. Like, bro, he's a little fucking kid. That has like fuck all to do with anything. There's a whole ass video of me as a little fucking kid, like probably about that age, 2 or 3, putting my dad's shoes on. That had nothing to do with me, being cis. It had fuck all to do with that. And with his marriage, no, the problem is he got married at 20. Most people who get married young, statistically, don't even last that long, even without the partner becoming trans. So, maybe that's just a bad idea in the first place, because who you are at 20 is probably going to be a lot different than who you are at 25 or 30. Hell, according to studies, your brain isn't even fully developed until you're 25. And then with the Mr. Beast business thing, first of all, his business is not going to just fucking shatter from this, dude. The dude is going to do fucking fine. But, like, at the end of the day, even if he didn't, so fucking what? His business is not worth this dude fucking, having a shit life. Or not a shit life, but being unhappy with who he is. But anyways, I'll put my sources in the description. This video is almost 20 minutes long. It is currently 18 minutes long. That's too long of a video, at least for nowadays, for me. So, we'll go ahead and end the video. Fuck Matt Walsh. He's not even a grifter. He's just an authoritarian piece of fucking shit. Yeah. You can't leave a dislike, so you might as well leave a like, or I guess not even. I mean, you can leave a dislike, it just won't matter. But, yeah, Slimber out.